Today we got a story time from a subscriber who's claiming that, his uncle told him that the Backrooms actually isn't just an urban legend on the internet, but it was something that he experienced back in the day. Yeah, this is a crazy one, dude. Leave a like in the video to claim your free nothing, subscribe to the channel, and let's just jump right into it. So I'm going to call the subscriber who sent in this story Dennis. And by the way, Dennis sent in this story via my Instagram, which you can go follow. Even if you're not going to send in a story, it's in the description. Anyways, first thing I want to say is, in my personal opinion, before I tell the story, in my personal opinion, someone here is lying. Someone here is making this up. It's either his uncle was lying to Dennis or Dennis was making this up. Either way, it's a decent enough story, or maybe the Backrooms are actually real. Personally, I don't believe that, but the story was interesting enough that I thought, screw it, I'm going to tell it on the story anyways. Tell it on the channel anyways. I can't even speak. Anyways, right, apparently this happened, not too long ago, but, the Backrooms, very popular kind of urban legend on the internet, and it recently blew up again with that video from Kane Pixels, the really cool kind of like horror film, student film, whatever, right? And apparently Dennis, who we're going to call the subscriber, Dennis was like getting really into it. He was getting like all into the lore behind it, watching a bunch of YouTube videos on it. And his uncle, the brother of his dad, they both grew up in like the 80s, 70s, whatever. He was around one day, like he was visiting he was visiting his dad. And at this time, Dennis was really just like engulfed in all this kind of like Backrooms internet content. And Dennis at this time really did have a strong belief that this was just all kind of like fake, made up on the internet. But it's always fun to kind of like believe these things or whatever. And sure enough, right, Dennis's uncle, we're just going to call him the uncle, or we'll just say the uncle, right? So the uncle was like around watching, just chilling at the house or whatever. And he sees Dennis looking at all this Backrooms content. And the uncle says, hey, like, do you know if that is based on? And, Dennis kind of looked at him like, what do you mean? What is the Backrooms based on? Like, it's an urban legend on the internet, right? And, Dennis's uncle said, you know what? I think it's time I tell you a story from my childhood. And at this point, right, Dennis is like listening in because he's like, all right, so the Backrooms has something to do with a story time from his childhood. Like, all right, I'm interested. So sure enough, right, Dennis sat down, unplugged his headphones or earpods or whatever, stopped his YouTube video, sat on the couch, and, his uncle's like, all right, man, so, like, I don't know this for a fact, but I do believe that whoever started this internet rumor experienced the same thing that me and my buddies did back in the 80s. And at this point, right, Dennis was like, hey, yo, like, hold up here. And the uncle goes on to say, so this was back when I was a teenager. So this was like middle of the 80s or whatever. And, back in the day, me and my friends used to just go around, just kick around town, go to like abandoned like warehouses, go to just abandoned parks, go on like long hikes, no adult supervision, nothing like that. We were just going around, messing around to have a good time. And there was this kid, right? There was this kid in our class. He was kind of a little nerdy. He was kind of a little weird. And we just never really got along with him. And we just never really hung out with him. And for the sake of, this video, I'm going to call him Ben, right? Anyways, the uncle goes on to say, so this kid just like one day didn't show up to class. And no one really thought anything of it because like the high school that he went to, kids were skipping school all the time. Like kids were getting expelled all the time. Dennis's like uncle, just kind of went to a high school with a lot of people who just were not planning on, sticking through the full 4 years, which by the way, just get through high school. Going to college is cool, but at least get through high school, guys. That's the best advice I can give you. Just put your head down and grind through it. Trust me, it's much better doing that than not seeing it through and graduating. But anyways, right, Dennis's, uncle didn't think much of it at the time. He's like, all right, so this kid Ben didn't show up one day. And then it goes about a week, and Ben just doesn't show up. And, Dennis and his friends kind of just assumed that, Ben just either moved town or just is not showing up to school anymore. Maybe he got expelled. Maybe he's just deciding that he's done with this. But this, this kind of like reality kind of shattered when, the uncle, or Dennis's uncle, to check the name for a second, Dennis's uncle, right? He was sitting with his friends at a lunch table. And then this guy who they kind of knew was like friendly with Ben came up to them and started to like say, hey man, like, I just want to let you know what what happened with Ben. Like, I don't know for sure, but like, I'm really weirded out. Anyways, right, so this friend of Ben comes up to Dennis and his friends and is basically just trying to, like, is worried about his, like, kind of acquaintance Ben. He isn't super close with Ben, but he goes on to explain that, the day before Ben stopped showing up to class, right, that he was, like, going off about how he discovered something crazy in the abandoned warehouse in their neighborhood, saying that, like, it led to a completely different world. Like, it just kept going. He was able to get out of there, but it was a really weird feeling. There's this buzzing sound. Somehow that when you went through this door, the lights were on. It was like this dim yellow lighting, right? And for some reason, right, this abandoned warehouse that had no power, nothing was connected, everything was smashed and broken. There was like a whole underground layer that had like power and electricity. And it was a bunch of office rooms, and it made absolutely no sense. And this guy was saying that, like, Ben was going off about this almost manically to him. And just the next day, he probably went there to explore it again, is what this guy is telling, Dennis's uncle. And he's just like, dude, and then Ben didn't show up the next day. And, I tried to, like, I went to Ben's house. I didn't know him that well, but I went to Ben's house, and his mother was there, and his mother was, like, in a state of panic because Ben had just not shown up again. Like, Ben just disappeared one day. He didn't just stop going to school. He stopped showing up to everything. No one knows where he is. At this point, right, Dennis's uncle and Dennis's uncle's friends are just like, oh, geez, like this is legit. Like, this is actually serious. So then Dennis's uncle tells Dennis, like, hey, like, in retrospect, what me and my friends did, you should never do. Like, this was really reckless and stupid, but we did it anyways. So Dennis's uncle and his friends decide that they want to go check out this abandoned warehouse for themselves because, it's at least something to do. And also it's the source of something interesting now because this guy who just disappeared, right, was going off about, like, how there's something secret down there. In retrospect, little commentary from me, dude, just don't do this. Like, even, like, if they think it is the Backrooms or something, right, 9 out of 10 times, like, in reality, right, this would just be, if someone went there and disappeared, something really bad is there. So just don't go there. But anyways, Dennis's uncle and his friends weren't really that smart, so they decided that they wanted to investigate. And so, one, Friday after school, they were like, all right, we're going to do it today. So they all get together, and they're like, all right, let's just go down to the abandoned warehouse. Let's explore it a little bit. Let's try and find some, like, hidden underground place. I don't even know, like, what we're looking for, but let's just go there and see what we can find. Real quick, if you made it this far into the video, comment Backrooms down below. I just want to see how many people made it this far. But anyways, right, Dennis's uncle and his friends, they decide that they're going to go down and investigate. So, that Friday night, or that Friday evening, I should say, they're not going there when it's dark. They might be reckless, but they're not that reckless, right? So Friday evening, they got at least a few hours of daylight. They decide to go down to the abandoned warehouse, right? And they go down there, and it's a little sketchy. I mean, it's an abandoned warehouse. Like, of course it's a little sketchy. They go in there, there's broken glass. So anyways, right, Dennis's uncle and his friends, they're exploring the abandoned warehouse. They've been there a few times before, so it's not like they're exploring it completely new. So they go in there, everything looks about the same, right? Broken windows, glass on the floor. There's some graffiti from people who've gone in there and, like, graffitied it up or just marked it up or whatever, right? There's, like, they remember the same things are there from before. There's, like, some bits of equipment that have rusted out that the people who were there before just left there. There's this big, like, door that used to open and closed for, like, shipments or whatever. That was, like, kind of, like, broken and rusty. They got in through this back door that just, like, fell off and no one ever fixed it because it's, it's an abandoned warehouse. No one's keeping that thing up anymore. And then eventually, right, so there's a basement to this place. And they never really ventured into the basement because they're like, nah, that's creepy. Like, that's kind of weird. But they kind of come to the conclusion that if there's something here, it's not going to be on the surface and it's going to be somewhere in the basement. So they all kind of look at each other and they're just like, all right, we're going to do it. We're either not going to do it or we're going to do it. At this point, right, Dennis is like, hey, like, we're not going to go in there without a light. And they look at each other, and no one brought a flashlight. So they're like, all right, let's come back Saturday. Let's come back prepared. Backpacks, we got water, got our flashlight, got some food, we're going to come prepared. Got some wire cutters just in case we have to get or a lock cutter or something, like, to make sure that we get in there. So anyways, they go back, deciding that today was not the day. And the next day rolls around, and it's Saturday, and that's when they bring all the supplies. So they come back to the abandoned warehouse, and they get in there. They look at the basement, and they're just like, all right, Everyone get their lights out. So everyone takes out their flashlights. They open the door and they venture down. So anyways, they open up the door. They walk down to the basement. Once again, a little commentary for me. Dude, just don't do this. It's a bad call. But anyway, so they, Dennis's uncle and his friends, they go down there. They got their flashlights. They're looking around and they're just like, oh, sick. Because there's all this like rusted out machinery. There's all this like big piles of scrap metal. There's like some old, just a bunch of like old stuff down there. And then there's a bunch of doors. And most of them lead to like empty closets, or not closets, but like storage areas. They open it up, like they'll open one up. They also put on gloves. They're not trying to get tetanus or anything. They put on some like thick like gardening gloves. They open up one of the doors. They look inside. Nothing's there. Nothing is there. And then finally, they find like one of the last couple doors, and they open it up, and it's like the same thing as always. It's like a storage closet, but they see that like beyond this door is another door. And this is where they all stop in their tracks, because Dennis's uncle tells Dennis that they saw something that to this day he can't explain. There was another door, and the lining of that door was light. You know how like if like everything else is dark and there's like one room in your house is like lit up and the door is closed, you'll still see an outline of like light leaking out from like the little crevices and edges and such? This is what they were seeing, meaning that there was light on in wherever this was. So sure enough, right, this kid Ben was telling the truth, at least the point that there was kind of a secret underground place here and there was light. And so sure enough, right, Dennis's uncle is like looks at everyone else. He's like, all right, like this is kind of dangerous. We should really be careful. But he says, I got to know what's behind here. And before any of the other guys could stop him, Dennis's uncle goes to the door, twists it, and slowly opens it. And he's able to like just peer inside, even just briefly, right? He sees this yellow monotonous light. He sees office rooms, and it seems to just keep going. And for some reason, right, Dennis's uncle, the whole thing was creepy, but he just got this gut feeling of like, I should not be here. We should not be here. He closes the door. He looks at his friends and he's like, we need to go right now. And like his friends assumed that he saw something or like someone in there, something dangerous, right? I mean, it seemed dangerous in general, but like saw an immediate threat. So they all bolt to like the exit. They all run up the stairs. They all run out of the abandoned warehouse. And they honestly keep running for like 5 minutes until they're very far away. And at the end of it, like one of the friends is like, dude, what did you see? And Dennis's uncle said like, I didn't see anything immediate, but, and then he goes on to explain what he saw, which is a bunch of like fluorescent light, like yellow kind of light, and then like a bunch of office rooms. And he's like, dude, like there was nothing immediately there. I just got this feeling that we should not have been there. And his friends were like, bro, is that it? And he's like, you got to trust me. Like we should not be there. And that was, Dennis's uncle said like that was the last time we went there. Him and his friends never saw anything else like that again. And he said he never really heard from Ben again. And he said he's not sure if Ben actually did disappear or like, he just moved and he ran away from home. Maybe he was staying down there and he just moved without him knowing. But at this point, right, like, Dennis's uncle, like, turns to Dennis and is like, dude, like, maybe Backrooms are totally unrelated, but it's my personal theory that someone that lived near me at that time had a similar experience and just took a while to write about it on the internet. He said, I don't know if that was some like secret hideout for some bad people. I don't know if that was like one of these like portals to this dimension, but something seriously strange happened back then. And I just want to tell you about it. So Dennis is sitting there just looking at his uncle like, oh my God, like that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. So anyways, right, and that's about the end of the story that Dennis sent to me. Do I personally believe it? I don't know. Maybe. I thought it was at least interesting enough to tell in the story, and it's up to you guys, whatever you think about that. Give your thoughts about, the story, if you think it's real, if you think it's fake, if you think it was, like, actually the Backrooms, if you think it's just something totally different. But anyways, subscribe if you haven't already, drop a like in the video, and then click one of the 4 videos on screen right now, or some other video of mine to support the channel. Thank you. Peace.